For people who want to know what is the Keith Network, the whole point of my talk show is to show you that even with having a learning disability, I can still amount to something. And at the same time, I'm able to turn myself into an example for people out there dealing with any types of learning disabilities and disabilities to never give up and prove people wrong. Prove to them that labels do not dictate who you are and who you're going to be. To prove them, you can still amount to something. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Keith Andrew, and you're watching the one and only KeithAndrewNetWork. It is episode 1035. That is 1035. We're here with a beautiful guest here only on the KeithAndrewNetWork. As you heard from her recommendations, she introduced herself, told us a little bit about herself. And the first question I want to ask you is tell our audience a little bit more about yourself.
Hi, my name is Lili-Kayy Park, and I am a Canadian girl. So I'm coming to you all the way from Canada, and I live up in the area of the Okanagan. You might not be familiar with it, but it's beautiful. Basically, I live in Merritt. I'm near Kelowna, Kamloops, and I'm 3 hours from Vancouver, so it's not bad. I have the best of both worlds. And also a children's entertainer.
No, that's absolutely amazing. I didn't mean to interrupt. I apologize.
Oh, no worries.
I was going to say, I love Toronto. There's something about the name Toronto that always stands out. One of my favorite women wrestlers, Trish Stratus, was from Toronto.
That's awesome. You know something that's kind of embarrassing. My mother-in-law lived up in Ontario and Toronto area, but I've never been. I'm a Canadian who's never been to Toronto. Yeah.
Well, you also mentioned Calgary.
Yes. I have lived near Calgary. I have lived in Red Deer, Alberta. I have friends in Calgary, and I've been around Saskatchewan, Calgary. That's a city, and I just named a province, so I should clarify. I've been in Alberta and Saskatchewan and British Columbia, but I really haven't traveled any further than that, which is sad because Canada is a huge country. I do intend to sort of explore my own country eventually. I'm more well-traveled in other places like Spain, Mexico, California, New Orleans, yes, but I haven't really seen much of my own country.
Oh, we're in the same boat. I was born and raised in upstate New York. I don't drive, but I take trips with my dad. We've been to Connecticut, we've been to New Jersey, and that's really about it. And it's like, well, you say you're a New Yorker, but you're upstate. Yeah, I gone to Potsdam, I gone to Plattsburgh, I gone to different states, but we're in the same category too. Eventually, I would like to go to other states as well.
Yeah, it's so neat to see the entirety of your country, isn't it? There's so much variety, and you only stay in one little spot, and then you travel to other parts of the world, but there's so much more to see where you are yourself, There's so much culture and so many differences in the people, even in accents from one state to the other and one province to the other.
No, absolutely. It's amazing that you talk about the planet Earth, one planet with 120 countries, and it's amazing how you have different languages all in one place.
Yes, yeah. And even if you speak the same language, just the inflections and the accents. For instance, in Canada, if you go over to Newfoundland, you can hardly understand they're singing. They have such a strong, thick accent. It sounds a little bit like an Irish brogue if you are trying to compare it to anything. I say they sound Irish to me.
Now, do you ever, a question I was going to ask you mentioned that we were talking about Canada. Oh, I'm a big wrestling fan of people may or may not know. It's one of my favorite heroes. Let me ask you this. Are you a professional wrestling fan?
No. But my brother is. My brother is absolutely crazy about it.
For me, certain states or countries, I'm like, okay, Canada. Oh, that's easy. Chris Jericho, Chris Candido, Chris Benoit before he had a nervous breakdown. Brett, Owen, Trish Stratus. There's so many great Lance Storm, so many great Canadian wrestlers.
There
And you
are.
mentioned from other states, Washington, Batista, Chicago, CM Punk, Legion of Doom. Um, Now I'm just trying to think, so I'm hurting myself. New York, McFoley, home at Madison Square Garden, home of the World Trade Towers. There's just so, of course, the World Trade Towers weren't wrestlers, but a funny story about that. Back in the 19, what's in the early 80s? It had to be about 1988, maybe 89, 87, maybe. There was a tag team. There was a Big Boss Man, and forget who his partner was, but they were called the Two Towers.
Ah, my brother talks about, yeah, yeah, I know who you're talking about.
And but so it's just funny because it's like I'm drawing. I'm trying to focus on you, but at the back of my mind, like someone turning out trying to think about wrestling. But it's interesting. You're different states, different languages. But not to talk about wrestling or anything. But the question I want to ask you is, what attracted you to begin your career as a professional actress?
Well, now you have my mind on wrestling as well. I will answer that question. But first, I just wanted to quickly say that my brother, he's not an actor, but he is a very big personality. He loves comedy. He could be a comedian if he got past his nerves. And he's one of the biggest proponents in my life that encouraged me. I suppose this is answering the question and also going backwards. He is one of the biggest proponents in my life that encouraged me to pursue acting and art, because every time I got together with him, we would just kind of bounce off each other and start doing funny little accents, and he'd be rolling out the jokes and I'd be rolling out certain scenes. And it just felt like home. It felt comfortable and it felt fun. And you want to find something in your life that brings you joy. And my journey here towards becoming an actor was a very long one, a very twisty, curvy one. I went through some depression. I think that a lot of artists do. A lot of people, not just artists, people in general, right? Life can be hard. But artists tend to have, I think, a very big sensitivity, big hearts, and a lot of feelings. And so sometimes it can hit them maybe harder. And I felt like I didn't know where I was going. I was floundering. And actually, it was my doctor at the time. I had just given birth. And I think hormones had a play in this. I don't think that it was all just circumstances. I think to some extent it was my body. And my doctor recommended that I find something that I love. And what I found to start with was actually kids' entertainment. I started doing magic shows, and I started face painting and balloon artistry. And it sounds like something so small and so silly, but it brought me a lot of joy. And I still do it to this day. And I thought I would leave it there. But then very soon, people started noticing what I was doing, and they started inviting me to things like, hey, you seem like you really like the stage. Would you like to try theater? Really? So I tried that. And the first theater program that I tried out for, I went there intending to learn how to hang up coats and help in the back with the wardrobe. And I thought I would maybe be a makeup artist because of my face painting. And they put some paper in my hand and shoved me onto the stage and told me to try out, and I landed a main role. So I was like, I might be good at this. And I did a couple more. And then life was very busy, and I had small children, and my husband asked me to focus on that. So I set it aside, didn't do it again. And I focused on my family, and I focused on him. I'm going to say for about 12 years, 10 to 12 years. I didn't really do much with this. And then we had an upheaval in our lives. We had a loss, and that loss opened me up to wanting to pursue something that brought me joy again. And I wanted more than just my children's entertainment, and I found myself suddenly pursuing acting. It almost kind of fell in my lap. I just heard on the radio one of those announcements that you could come and try out for something, and like a complete crazy woman. I just jumped in my car with no preparation, drove down there, and I sat in a room where hundreds of people were auditioning. And I had no material, nothing ready. And I just watched. And by the time they got to me, I think I was like 200th or something. I had been watching all these people like all day. I just sat there from morning till night watching people. And by the time they got to me, I had a whole routine in my head just from watching all these people. And much to my surprise, I actually made it through the vetting process. And then they asked if I would like to take some training. And that's what got me on the path that I'm on now. It's even more complicated than that, but it would take too long to explain everything. Let's just say I fell in love with it, and here I am.
No, absolutely. Hashtag absolutely. Now, you can ask me anything you want. I have no, well, obviously I have a card in my hand, but you can't see it. Now you see it. I don't have any cards up my sleeve, so you can ask me anything you want. You
No,
can keep it yeah, absolutely. You can keep it PG, keep it uncensored. It's whatever you want to say. But there's two things I like to talk to you about. Why is it like for certain people, when they say something, it's okay for them to use, profanity or certain. Well, I give you an example. You watch all these comedy shows, and don't worry, I'm not gonna drop any F bombs or anything. That's completely up to you if you want to. But you watch your shows, and the woman always walks in. It says, "Huh, this place could use a woman's touch." No one bats an eye. I was sitting on my bed and I was thinking, moving stuff around, make it look nice. And I said to my sister, "Could you help me? This place could use a woman's touch." And you say, like, "How dare you say that to me? It's late. So it's okay for women to say, oh, this place needs a woman's touch. But as soon as a guy says it, it's like, it's already woman's." It's kind of like, so that brings up, certain individuals, they can use curse words or colorful languages, or, in that case, use the N word or whatever. But as soon as you do it, it's a double-edged sword. So it's like, it's okay to say this, but if you turn it around, it's kind of like you become a hypocrite. Well, so the question I want to ask you is, when someone says, or I bet your husband probably said it jokingly, this place could use a woman's touch. Would you take offense to that, or would you just say, that's funny. He's really an asshole, but
It depends. It depends on his motive for saying it. Sometimes he does like to kind of needle me. He knows I'm a bit of a feminist. I've been that way since I was 9 years old. It's not changing now. It's not changing anytime soon, especially with the current climate of society. I have given some thought to the hypocrisy, if you will, though, of our culture. I have given a lot of thought to what we call cancel culture.
Yeah.
And the simple answer for me to give you would be that we have come to a place. It's very difficult for anyone with any neurodivergent take on life to walk and navigate through our society right now. Our social structures are so complex, and if you're neurodivergent, you're a lot more honest than most people, and you're a lot more, shall we say, tactless sometimes. Like I find myself a little tactless sometimes, and I have to really work on it. But I think, yeah, that we find it hypocritical. We find it, like you said, to be a double standard, whereas other people don't really think about it, because it has a lot to do with the nuances, the motives, and whether or not that person supposedly has the right to use the language they're using. For instance, I am part Native, so I'm not going to touch on any other ethnicity just to stay on the safe side.
Right.
And this could get me in trouble because I'm Métis. I do look like I'm mixed, but a lot of people can't see past my white skin. So even me talking about my own culture can sometimes get me in trouble, because they'll be like, "You're too white, you can't talk about Indigenous culture." And I'm like, really? My grandma was in, the school system. She went through residential school and everything. Like, we lost our tribe. Like, we've suffered, like, I have a right to speak, but I have to
Yeah, you do.
sometimes, but I'll use my ethnicity to describe this. I would say that an Indigenous person could say about themselves, like, "Oh, it's Indian time, eh?" Like my uncles always did that. And my churches, we'd go to church and, we'd say, "Oh yeah, it's going to start at 7." And then it would start at like 8:30, or, "Oh, it's going to start at 6," and then we'd be there like sitting, waiting, and it would start at like 7 or after 7, So it was Indian time, and we're allowed to say that. But if anyone else said it, it was like, "Oh, how dare you insult us?"
Well, was your
So,
permission? Is it okay if I tell a funny joke?
yeah, totally. Yeah.
Well, the joke's fun to moving, moving. Whatever, my mind's moving. The joke is from a Liam Neeson movie. It was a horrible movie. He did it for shits and giggles. That's pretty much why Liam Neeson did it. I think it was called Snowpiercer. Oh, was
Oh, wow.
that?
That was a good.
Oh, go ahead.
That was a good one. That was a really good movie. Sorry, continue.
No, absolutely. I think it was Snowpiercer. I just know there's a TV show called Outlaws, and it's pretty much was an episode. Let's see, he was a cowboy. He helps the Native Americans, and it's basically I can't think of the show, but that's pretty much what the plot of the movie was. So it wanted to see guys like, "Oh, it's out here." They were in Alaska. "Oh, it's out here. It's darkness and silent. I hate this freaking place." But the joke I was going to make was there was only like a restaurant. Hey, for our listeners on the Keith Andrew Network, we like to have fun, so don't get all uppity. So the joke, they walked in, someone said to a bunch, she didn't know they were Native Americans. So she had her head down and she said, "Hi, do you have reservations?" And,
Oh.
and the guy says, "Did you just ask a bunch of Native Americans if they have reservations? Where's your manager?"
Oh dear.
I
Yeah.
know. It,
Yeah.
it's stupid funny. It's everyone has the right to make as long as it's in good fun. You're doing it in good fun. You can make jokes about anything. Mel Brooks made fun of Jewish people. He was Jewish. Oy vey, Spaceballs, and I did this to my daddy. He keeps saying, "Keep doing that. I'm gonna hitting you one day." Oy, maybe we can haggle a little bit. Maybe we can make a deal. Oy, and he says shit isn't funny. All you're doing is antagonizing. I'm really
Yeah.
good at antagonizing people, but
I think that's what it boils down to is that people use their own backgrounds to make fun of their own ethnicities or their own experiences or their own life stories. But the minute that you use somebody else's, you're in hot water because people are so sensitive nowadays,
it's
especially.
true.
And you have to be so careful because if you touch on anyone else, like I'm not going to do it because I don't want to die. But I work for a lot of East Indian families and they are lovely. And I have, as an entertainer, worked for a long time for a lot of
Right.
East Indian, so much so that I love the food with a passion. I cook East Indian in my household more than I cook any other Western type food. So my children have been brought up not on butter chicken, but literally on like lentils, spicy chickpeas, spicy type chicken, pakora, the fish, we have and tons of rice, spiced rice, masala. I don't know how to pronounce it, but even raita, the cucumber yogurt kind of thing that you add your salt and your masala to. It's, I make that food all the time. So they might call it cultural appropriation, but I love the food because I'm constantly working for them and eating it. And I learned to speak with their accent because when you're around people long enough and you constantly hear them talking, you pick it up. So if I wanted to, I could do a really mean East Indian accent and have some fun. But I know because of the way I look and because it's not my
Yeah.
cultural background, it's not safe for me to do so. So I think that answers the question in a roundabout way. But to put it bluntly and simply, you just don't touch on anything that people would consider appropriation or anything that they would consider you don't have the right to touch. And your motive has to be totally clean, and you have to only use your own background, because everyone today in this day and age is incredibly sensitive. So yeah, that's the answer in a nutshell, is the sensitivity is off the chart, and you can only use your own background. You can only make fun of yourself, your own people, your own ethnicities, your own stories.
Okay, so wrapping up the talk show, I usually save this for off the air, but I'm going to ask you our last question. When I first approached you to be a guest on my talk show, what made you get? We do that again. Blah, 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 blah. As we wrap up our talk show, Jesus, I'm having a brain fart. I just took some CBD gummies before, because usually I go to sleep this time, but let's do that again. 3, 2, 1. As we wrap a little bit.
It's all right. Take a moment and let's all breathe.
As
I
we
do that.
wrap, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. As we wrap up our talk show, the last segment I want to ask you is, when I first approached you to be a guest on my talk show, what made you say yes? How do you feel now? And would you recommend it to other people?
Oh, wow. I'm going to have to hang on to all those 3 things. Okay, 3 points. What made me say yes? And would I recommend it to other people? I got those 2. What was the third one?
Oh, what made you say yes? How do you feel now? And would you recommend it?
Okay, I'm going to go backwards. Yes, I would recommend it. I think this is great. This is lots of fun, and it just feels very nice to speak with something. Now I'm doing it. I'm stumbling. It feels really nice to speak with somebody. I almost called you a something. That's just so rude. Somebody who is so honest and not trying to put on any airs. It's really nice. It makes me feel really safe. I'm a little neurodivergent myself, so I enjoy this. Yes, I would recommend you. How do I feel now? I'm comfortable, which is why I would recommend you. What made me say yes? Honestly, I don't quite know. I was tiptoeing around it and I wasn't sure, because there's so many scams online. But I think it was your honest approach and saying how you are a neurodivergent person. You didn't actually even use those words. You were just blunt. You're like, I have a learning disability. And I was like, oh, because my own children have learning disabilities. I don't like to call it a disability, but you're just so blunt that I will. I just always tell them they're different, and that's okay. And they are incredibly smart, and they are incredibly beautiful. My youngest is just this amazing dancer, and she has an amazing memory. She can memorize lines like you wouldn't believe. You take her outside, she knows exactly where you were the last time. If you parked your car somewhere, I always get lost. She knows exactly where everything is. And my oldest daughter, she's phenomenal with her animals and her horses, and just she's so sensitive to people. She always senses what's going on with people and wants to care about them. Just the biggest heart in the world, so compassionate. And she works really hard. She actually gets good grades because she works about 3 times as hard as your average bear. She's always studying and always trying, because she takes a longer time to grab things and hold on to them that maybe an average person would just think is easy, because she learns differently. And she's not stupid. She's just different. My husband, he's different. He had dyslexia, passed it on to them. And he, all his life, felt like he was stupid. But honestly, he's a head technician at MCon. He is different. And he's so smart with the things that he's smart at. Just not everything, right? Like not academics, but he's so smart. And he can pick up any sport. He's never done it before. You take him, he's never done, I don't know, let's say squash, all of a sudden he's playing, he beats the person who's played for 20 years, you take him on a boat and he's never done wakeboarding. All of a sudden he's wakeboarding in the next 5 minutes, and he looks better than the guy who's been trying to do it for 2 years. Like he picks up on it like that. So there's different kinds of intelligence, and he's got high athletic intelligence, extremely high. And I think my oldest daughter has a really high emotional intelligence. She's always had it. She's just super in tune, and my youngest daughter, I think she's a blend of super high athletic intelligence and a little bit of that emotional intelligence, but there's also a drive and a spark in her. She's extremely competitive. For me, I'm very high on the artistic, spectrum. I think actually my youngest is too. And art is my outlet, but I've always felt a little bit weird because I'm kind of quirky, and I did not struggle with academics. but I did not do well with social situations. That could be my upbringing. My dad is autistic. Maybe it was just nature and nurture together. Or maybe it was only nurture and he rubbed off on me. I don't know. But girls are better at masking. So I've always kind of felt like maybe I am a little bit there, wasn't diagnosed there, but it did make things awkward for me because I was always a little bit more blunt. And I would always say things as I saw them. And I struggled to hold people's eyes. I would slide away the minute I could. And there was just little oddities. I was more sensitive to certain noises and distractions. And I struggled to focus if there were other things going on around me. I didn't like certain textures. My kids inherited that too. They got it from both ends. They got it from their dad and I. So it's inevitable that they would be weird. So all of these things drew me to you when you said you were learning disabled. The minute you said that, in my head, I went, oh no, honey, you're not. You're just different. And neurodivergence is a gift. And it made me want to meet you and see if you were real. And you are. So it's lovely. I really have enjoyed this. Thank you.
No, absolutely. It's funny, you said you get it from both ends, and the first thing that popped in my mind, because I always make the joke, because it's like, well, if he shoves something down your throat and he shoves something up your butt, do they meet in the middle? And my dad's like, and my dad's like, it doesn't work like that. Human butt.
I wasn't expecting that one.
Because they always say you'll go for a colonoscopy and then you go get the hose down your throat, stick your stomach. It's like, well, if you do it at the same time, what happens? It's like, no, they don't do it at the same time. Yeah, but it saves time.
You just said something my brother would say. So. Oh my. See, it's these kind of thoughts that normally your average bear would just filter out and not say, but us neurodivergent people, it just comes out. It doesn't stay in there. It's not a thought that floats past. It's just.
I said to my niece, I had a brain fart. It's like, what's that? What's a brain fart? Does that mean your brain farted?
Yeah, like pretty much.
But I do have a couple questions for you off the air. While wrapping up our interview segment, this will be available on LinkedIn, Instagram, all social medias. If you're watching, you definitely have to leave a comment. Our goal for part 2, before we get to do a part 2, our goal is to reach 100 and more views. Once we're able to do that, we can definitely do a part 2. All this month, and I can say, all this month of June, there will be shout outs. Listen to Keith Andrew Network, a happy 10-year anniversary. I hope you're able to do one as well. And our people who are watching, make sure to like and support. This is not a con. This is not spam. This is my way of showing people with a disability I'm able to accomplish my goals and turn myself into an example. As I said in the beginning, in our way beginning, labels do not dictate who you are and who you're going to be. So prove to them you can stand out to something. So hashtag break the label. So with that being said, it was a real honor and privilege having you as a guest, and until we meet again, catch you later. Thank you and have a good night.